Welcome back to Fantasy Recap. Today's recap is about a 2009 American science fiction thriller film called Knowing. The plot revolves around the discovery of a strange piece of paper filled with numbers and the possibility that they predict the details of various disasters, culminating in the apocalypse. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The film begins in 1959 at William Dawes Elementary School in Lexington, Massachusetts. Lucinda Embry is seen in the playground staring to the distance, as if she's witnessing some catastrophic event. Whispering sounds can be heard in the background as she stares. Miss Taylor, the teacher, repeatedly instructs Lucinda to return to class when recess is over. During the class, Miss Taylor informs the student that as part of the school's official opening day celebration, the students will draw their visions of the future and place the results in a time capsule. She informs them that this was Lucinda's idea. Lucinda is in a trance as they begin drawing, furiously scribbling seemingly random numbers onto the page. The mysterious whispering voices appear to be controlling Lucinda's thoughts and actions. Miss Taylor must grab the sheet from Lucinda as she collects the students' work due to her trance-like state. A crowd gathers during the ceremony as the time capsule is lowered into the school grounds. Lucinda is alone and staring at the proceedings in the distance. Miss Taylor notices Lucinda has left her spot and her balloon has floated away a few minutes later. This prompts a search party to look for her. Miss Taylor is alerted by a noise coming from a door to a school storage closet and finds Lucinda inside, her fingers bloodied from scratching even more numbers into the wooden door. She's still sobbing and acting as though she's in a daze when she asks Miss Taylor to stop whispering. The film then jumps forward 50 years to the current day. At their home, MIT professor John Kosler and his son Caleb are having a normal day. For his kid, John is preparing hot dogs. They discuss the prospect of intelligent life in distant space, while Caleb is in his bedroom after supper watching his favorite tiger show. As John tucks Caleb into bed, it is clear that Caleb believes John's perspective on life in space is linked to the untimely death of Allison, John's wife and Caleb's mother. John kisses Caleb goodbye, and they have a nightly routine of utilizing sign language to say, "You and me together forever." Caleb has hearing loss and wears a hearing aid. After Caleb has fallen asleep, John's sipping from a bottle of whiskey and he's still grieving the loss of his wife. The next day, John is giving a determinism lecture to his class. Determinism is the belief that everything that occurs in the world is a result of something that occurred before it, an intentional cause and effect. On the other hand, everything that happens in our universe, including evolution, is random, incidental, and devoid of order. He's talking to his colleague Phil after the lecture when he finds he's missing Caleb's school's 50th anniversary party, where they are unveiling the identical time capsule shown at the beginning of the film. When he arrives at the celebration, he notices esteemed guest Miss Taylor delivering a speech, followed by the opening of the capsule. Miss Taylor begins distributing the numerous sketches and images to the present students. Miss Taylor, as if by coincidence, delivers Lucinda's paper of numbers to Caleb. As Caleb opens and reads the letter, he observes a strange figure in the distance wearing in a trench coat and begins to hear whispering voices in his brain. During supper that night, John discovers a strange letter with numbers protruding from Caleb's backpack. He admonishes him for stealing it, as it's still school property, and sends him to sleep after understanding it was from the time capsule. When John walks into Caleb's room for his usual tuck-in, he sees Caleb viewing old home tapes of Allison singing him to sleep. Instead of tucking him in, John shuts the door and begins to drink heavily. He overfills his cup and splashes booze everywhere as he pours himself drink after drink. When he walks to the kitchen to get something to clean up the mess, he discovers that he has placed his cup on Lucinda's list. A piece of numerals 911012996 is highlighted in the top left side of the circular imprint left by the wet cup's bottom. John examines the data that have piqued his interest. He approaches his whiteboard and writes these digits on it. After a few unsuccessful attempts at splitting them into other grouping combinations with no meaning, he discovers that the first 5 numbers represent the date of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist assault. When he looks up the event on the internet, he discovers that the total number of victims was 2,996. He writes the entire page of numbers onto the board, and with the help of the internet, he discovers that the number groupings appear to predict the dates of every major catastrophic event in the last 50 years. in the chronological order in which they occur, along with the body counts including the bombing of the Pan Am flight over Lockerbie, the Oklahoma City bombing, and Hurricane Katrina. A few groupings of numbers remain encircled and accounted for, implying that these numbers may anticipate future occurrences. John's eyes is drawn to the numerical sequence 102708, and he drops his glass in terror. Allison died on October 27, 2008, and it becomes evident. When he tells his coworker Phil about the data, he's mocked, and John storms out of the office. John follows Miss Taylor to her house and chats with her. He learns about Lucinda, how she went missing, and how they discovered her in the closet after she carved numbers on the door. Unfortunately, Miss Taylor informs him that Lucinda passed away some time ago. John intends to persuade Miss Taylor to support his idea, but it immediately becomes clear that Miss Taylor in her old age has begun to suffer from short-term memory loss, making her word untrustworthy. Later that day, Caleb is playing soccer in the front yard by himself. When a black automobile loaded with many of the weird-looking people approaches Caleb, John is on the phone attempting to get additional clues. Caleb begins to hear whispering sounds as the automobile approaches and believes his hearing aid is broken. One of the men reaches out the automobile window and delivers a smooth blackstone to Caleb. When John notices this, he hurries outside, but the men have already left. While checking up Lucinda's death on the internet, John is shocked by his sister Grace, who's concerned about how he's still suffering with his wife's death and how he doesn't talk to their pastor father. She offers to babysit Caleb in order for him to continue his social life. John begs her to go after a heated exchange of words. That evening and throughout the night, John searches the latest television news reports for any conceivable tragic occurrence that may be included in the remaining groupings of numbers, as the next day is one of the last 3 dates given. One news item mentions mobile phone's satellite network outage caused by solar flares. The next day, John falls asleep and forgets to pick up his kid from school. He phones Caleb and informs him that he's on his way. On his way to pick up his kid, John becomes caught in severe rain on a motorway due to an accident. He calls Phil to apologize for their prior meeting. He then uses his truck's GPS system to look for an alternate route, but there are none. Suddenly, he discovers the current latitude-longitude coordinates, and when he looks at Lucinda's letter, he notices the identical collection of digits immediately following the sequence listing the day's date. All of the uncircled groupings of digits he suddenly knows are the Catastrophes' latitude and longitude coordinate positions. He exits his truck and approaches the scene of the collision. While he's speaking with the cops, an aircraft crashes out of the sky right into the path of his vehicle, before continuing onto the fields adjacent to the highway where it explodes. John sees that Lucinda's numbers correspond to the dates, death counts, and geographical positions of significant disasters that have occurred in the last 50 years, including the Oklahoma City bombing, the September 11th attacks, and Hurricane Katrina, with 3 still to occur. In the days that follow, John witnesses 2 of the 3 last events: an aircraft disaster and a New York City subway train catastrophe caused by bad sighting. John becomes persuaded that his family played a role in these tragedies. His wife died in one of the previous incidents, and Caleb was the one who received Lucinda's letter. In the meantime, Caleb begins to hear the same whispering voices as Lucinda. To avert the previous disaster, John pursues Lucinda's daughter Diana and granddaughter Abby. After some skepticism, Diana and John travel to Lucinda's childhood home, where they discover a copy of Mathos Marian's etching of Ezekiel's chariot vision, which depicts a big sun. They also learn that the final 2 digits of Lucinda's message are 2 inverted letter E's, which matches the message Lucinda left beneath her bed. Everyone else. Caleb and Abby, who were left sleeping in the car throughout the search, had an encounter with the entities who were the source of the whispers. Diana informs John that her mother always informed her when she would die. He also pays a visit to Lucinda's teacher, who informs him about Lucinda's scratching on the door. A reproduction of Mathos Marian's 1670 etching of Ezekiel's chariot vision, which the film's characters take as a sign of the end of the world. The next day, Abby colors the etching in the sun, which offers John a revelation. He hurries to the MIT observatory and discovers that on the last day specified in the letter, a tremendous solar flare with the ability to kill all life would strike the Earth. As Diana and Abby prepare to seek sanctuary in nearby caverns, John visits the school and discovers the door in which Lucinda inscribed the last digits, which he recognizes as coordinates of a location where they may find refuge from the solar flare. Diana, doubtful and enraged, gets Caleb and Abby into her car and departs towards the caverns. The whispering entity sees her car with Caleb and Abby inside at a petrol station. Diana chases them down at high speeds in a stolen SUV, but she's murdered in a traffic accident involving a semi-truck on the date her mother prophesied. The aliens transport Caleb and Abby to Lucinda's mobile home, where John soon finds them. The entities, disguised as alien angels, are transporting youngsters to safety on intergalactic arcs. Because he never heard the talking, John encourages Caleb to go with Abby and 2 pet bunnies they discovered, and both are whisked away by the entities. The ark, along with many other arcs, departs from Earth. When the flare hits the next morning, John resolves to be with his family and travels through a chaotic Boston to his parents' house, where he reconciles with his estranged father. The solar flare then hits the Earth, destroying the atmosphere and all life on the planet. Meanwhile, the Ark, along with others, abandons Caleb and Abby on another planet that resembles an earthly paradise. The movie ends as the 2 sprint through a field in search of a great white mysterious tree that's said to be the Tree of Life. And that's all about this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay up to date with such interesting movie recap videos here.